Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of TA Tech Unboxed. The podcast is chatting to the people behind the tools that the TA and HR community use every day. If you are currently listening to this, don't forget to jump over to YouTube and check out some demos of all your favourite tools in the industry. I think we've got over 20 now live demos, and of course the interviews that we're running with all the founders and senior members of the teams. I am Chris Haslam, and I'm here today, as always, with the amazing, wonderful Mr. Darren Bush. Mr. Darren Bush, how are you?
Yeah, Chris. I think he even offered once. Maybe someone else can step in my shoes, but you wouldn't have it. You were like, it's just us two now. This is it.
This is it now. I'm done. We're in a rhythm. They might when I'm like introing and I say, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Bush, and then you're not there, it's someone else. It's just gonna be.
It's gonna be weird.
Crickets. It's gonna be crickets.
How have you been?
What is this? What is this? Recording number
25.
25. Wow. 25 and 6 months of doing this. It seems like we record every week.
It does. I feel like we've done more. I don't know how we only got to 25.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
We're like what? We should be at like what? I know actually. If you do the maths on the weeks, we should only be at what? 6 times 4? 6, 12, 8, 24. We should only be at 24. So we're at 25. We're actually ahead, but we keep taking breaks.
Well.
So Darren,
rather than go to the topic, should we ask? We're hitting to 25, right? It's a big milestone, quarter. I'd love to hear everyone's feedback about the show. So if you're listening to this,
100%.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear at the beginning. It'd be good to just message us, put it on something on the TA Tech Unboxed, on an episode, anything. It'd be nice to sort of get some feedback on what you like, what you don't like, what do you want to see more of, what do you see less of.
It'd also be great to know anyone's listening.
Yeah.
In the first place, if you could just say, "Hey, I'm listening," the feedback we can ask later. But right now, it'd just be nice to know that someone else is listening.
Yeah. Maybe just maybe a code word.
Nice to know you've got this far.
Yeah.
Pineapples.
Just
someone comment pineapples. Yeah. The first person to comment pineapples will get a special gift from me and Darren.
Oh, that's amazing. Let's see.
I
like that.
Now we can figure out what we need to do. Is to do it at the end of the show, though.
Yeah.
So people actually watch
the show. There's another keyword at the end of the show as we end it. I know what it is. I'm going to say it. So another keyword. But or maybe it's halfway because otherwise you might skip through.
Oh, exactly. Then you know where it is, right? We want to make it easy for you guys. Yeah. But I agree with you. We would love your feedback because we don't know if we're doing good, bad, ugly, terrible, fun. So yeah, please, everybody, make sure you give us a comment. Drop us a DM on LinkedIn. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be public. Just anything at all, just to let us know that we're on the right track. And just quickly before we end today's intro, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about skills-based hiring. Give us a definition.
Oh, I was about to say, can we bring the guest in and she can tell us?
How
about that? Yeah, she can tell us.
How about we do that then? And who do we have on today's show, Darren?
Today, Chris, we've got Shiran, CEO and founder at Informed Decisions, an interview intelligence platform. Welcome to the show, Shiran.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So we always sort of start the show with finding a little bit about you and your background and about how before you became CEO at Informed Decisions. So if you want to give us sort of a brief overview about that.
Yes, of course. So I'm an organizational psychologist. My main expertise is with everything related to the research and development of employee selection systems, assessment systems, and basically I've dedicated my entire career to helping organizations build a data-driven infrastructure for people decisions. It started out in hiring. So I started out as a consultant, building customized selection processes for different companies, initially here in Israel and then globally. And gradually it expanded to everything related to data-driven people decisions. So also in the realm of people analytics. And in the past 8 years or so, I into the technology world, and since then, I'm incorporating my knowledge in behavioral science with data science, machine learning, and everything that technology has to offer in order to basically scale whatever I did as a consultant.
Awesome. And do you want to give us a quick top line on specifically informed decisions? Because you've given us a nice lead in there. Me and Aaron have got a bunch of questions here about the founding moment, but it'd be great to just get a little intro on what you guys do at Informed or ID. How do we say it? ID, Informed? How do you prefer it? What's the shorthand?
Yeah, both go
We'll go with
very
ID.
well. Great. So yeah, at ID, we have developed an interview intelligence platform that focuses on the interviewer as the most important hiring tool that the company has. Because I assume you know that companies invest billions in technology, but eventually, if your interviewers are defaulting to their old way, to their biased ways, and are not able to learn and improve with time, like our now everyone's talking about machine learning and AI, and these are the exact mechanisms that they grow and improve, right? They get exposed to feedback, to data, they train, and they get better. So that's exactly what we're aiming to do for interviewers. We provide them with continuous data, both on the things that they're doing well, but also their individual biases, and provide them with actionable feedback on what they should be doing differently in order to hire more equitably and more accurately. And we're actually monitoring improvement over time. And that allows the hiring team to become a learning machine of their own.
Nice. How's it? How are you approaching the identification of bias using? Did I get that as you're using AI to identify bias?
Yes. So even before AI, um, there, since our platform is quantifying each and every step of the interview process and the decision making process, basically the data that the interviewers themselves are inputting into our platform allows us to monitor dozens of different patterns within the data. And monitoring those different patterns, each pattern can be either a bias or a best practice. And based on those patterns, then we're able to name them, to say, okay, this looks like a dominant skill bias, for example. So a dominant skills bias is a specific skill that makes a huge impression on the interviewer and thus paints their overall impression from the candidate. So for different interviewers, it could be different dominant skills that are creating this type of a bias. And what we're able to see in the data is the correlation, is the connection between a specific skill score and the overall impression score of the interviewer. And then we're able to highlight to that interviewer, hey, pay attention. This skill, you're providing it extra weight in your decision making process, and not necessarily it's not necessarily justifiable or accurate. So pay attention to it next time that you're interviewing. So that's just an example.
Can you, for those obviously who haven't come across you've given us a sort of a brief flavor of obviously the company. So if I was working in an organization, a TA, at a TA, where does informed decisions fit in? Where from beginning, from start to end, where does it kind of fit in?
Okay. So we fit in your hiring process, specifically when you start interviewing. We do have additional products like pre-hire assessments and application forms, etc. But our key focus is on the interview process. So when you start interviewing, which can also be, it's not necessarily the more in-depth interviews, but also the initial screen, because in many companies you have like the phone interview, right? That initial screen, in many times that's also unstructured, not data driven, just like a very first impression. Um, and actually, there is a lot of data and information that you can glean from such a conversation. So basically, from the first moment that you're starting to interview, that's where we come into the picture.
What about where do we exit? I know this question well. Darren likes to know where the beginning and the end is. So where do you say where do we end?
Yeah. So in terms of where does it end? It ends at your when you're making the hiring decision. So it ends uh, if for the user, for the interviewer, but for us as a company or as a vendor, our work does not end there, because what we're actually doing is that we're also monitoring both the performance and retention of the people that you've decided to hire. So then, as a part of the feedback that we're providing individual interviewers and interviewing teams, we're also providing them feedback about the quality of their decisions, meaning we're comparing the scores from the interview process to the actual performance and retention. And then we're able to tell you something significant about the quality of the decisions that you're making. So, for example, what is the percentage of top performers that you've hired in a specific time period? Or what is the ratio out of the people that you've hired that have left within a specific time period, 3 months, 6 months, etc. And more than that, since our platform is skills based, everything that we assess is actually tied to a specific skill. We're also able to tell you what are the skills that actually matter, because I assume you're well familiar with the fact that when hiring managers uh, build or we write together with them the job description, they probably want every skill in the book, right? So they want everything. But the human mind is not able to differentiate between so many skills when in an interview process or in an assessment process. So what we're actually telling you is what are the skills that are actually correlated with job performance, with retention. And by that, we're able to narrow down the actual list of skills that you should be assessing in your interview process.
Interesting. So you're somewhere between interview intelligence and an assessment platform in some ways, aren't you? In that sense, because
Right.
you're taking the intelligence from the interview and then actually using it. Well, my next question, I'm sorry, Darren, if I was butting in there, but my next question was, of course, when we just look at interview intelligence, there's a lot of products in the market. I was going to ask, like, where do you feel you guys differentiate yourselves versus the rest of the market? But is that it? The kind of the assessment element? Like, I don't know, maybe we can unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I feel the key differentiator is really the continuous feedback part. In my mind, an intelligence or any assessment is not considered valid, and that's part of the science that we bring as IO psychologists, unless it is being validated for its predictive validity. And that's exactly what we're incorporating. We're closing the feedback loop. So the feedback loop applies to the hiring team. We want them to learn from the data, from the quality of the decisions that they were able to make, both successes and failures. But it also helps us refine our platform, because when we know what are the skills that predict the most, what are the interview questions that predict the most versus the ones that are not predictive, it turns our platform from a static platform that basically, it's just all of the time the same questions, etc., to a platform that modifies itself with time. So providing a higher weight to more predictive skills versus lower skills to not predictive skills until removing them altogether. Same for interview questions. What interview questions work better at the context of the position and the organization that we're hiring for versus the ones that doesn't work as well. So the platform also continues to learn and adjust. So I think that's one key differentiator. The second thing is actually like everybody's talking about skills based hiring. In many times, I think there is a confusion about what is actually a skill and how is it being measured. What we're doing with our platform is to provide an infrastructure that creates alignment in the hiring process, but also beyond the hiring process because we're also tying to performance. So, for example, after 3 months or 6 months in the role, we're also sending from the platform to the hiring manager a skills based assessment, performance assessment. So, everything is in the skills language. There is a definition of what is that skill, how does it look like in the context of work, how good looks like when you're answering a question. So we're trying to take the ambiguity out of what is a skill, how is it measured, how does it look like in the specific role, and also how does it translate to actual job success. And that's
Quality of
again
hire, I
uh,
suppose, as well. You're tracking there.
mm,
You're talking about the quality of hire at the end of it to say that the skills you said at the beginning is actually what you evaluated for an interview, and is after you're hired, you can have probably a good sense of actually our hiring managers when they get the scores, when they look at it and go, actually, you know what, I didn't need that skill, or it's kind of you get. I'm sure you can see that differential between because often being with managers say, I need this, then you go to the interview stage, and then they're not tracking that as much, and then when you get to obviously they've hired, and actually some of those skills are completely dropped off, and there's new skills have been added on in the process, so you can track that kind of
e-
variability.
e- exactly. Most of the time, this is just being done by trial and error. So people have a lot of hypotheses. We also have hypotheses and as scientists or as behavioral scientists, but what we do as behavioral scientists is to actually test her hypothesis and either confirm or disprove it. So that's what we do with the actual performance data. We're able to tell this is actually predictive, great, let's enhance the weight. This is not predictive, great, let's remove it. And the byproduct of it is more lean and more efficient and focused hiring processes because again, as we all know, there are some ridiculous hiring processes that get to 7, 8 interview rounds. The candidate experience is awful. So the byproduct of actually having the data and being able to reverse engineer the process and to say what works and what doesn't is that we're able to cut based on data. A lot of times hiring teams are like they are connected to those long processes because they feel, okay, I'll do another interview that will make me feel more secure that I'm making the right decision. It's kind of a risk management thing. But when you see the data that actually tells you after 3 interview rounds, every additional interview round you do does not add to the accuracy of your decision, or it adds 1% or 2%, is it worth the effort? Then it's easier to accept, okay, I don't need that many interview rounds. After 3 interview rounds, I have 90% alignment about the candidate in my interviewing team. Should I do another round just to get to 91% alignment? Probably not. So, also in terms of efficiency, the data here helps.
I've got a lot of questions for what you said, which is good. I mean, but I don't know. At some point, we can have a quick fire round if we can get through them all. But one of the first questions I have: what's your view? What's your interpretation of skills based hiring? Because everyone has a different interpretation. What's your view or definition of it?
Okay. So basically, I compare skills to skills in talent acquisition or in human resources or in performance management. For me, it's like atoms in physics or like DNA in genetics. It's a core unit of an action, a behavior um, that is related to the way that we perform a task or a role or a job. So it's a unit, a clearly defined unit of performance. And these are the building blocks of our jobs and our performance. And when you do skills based hiring, instead of looking or defining this is the person that I need for a job in a more of an holistic way. So this person is a salesperson, like they're a senior salesperson, so they need 10 years of experience in sales, and they should be from an Ivy League school because that's where my best salespeople came from. And if they were an athlete, great, because all of my top performers are athletes. It means that they have high achievement. Instead of that, we're going and defining the building blocks. How does a good senior salesperson look like in terms of what they're actually should be accomplishing in their work? So they should be highly emotionally intelligent. They should be very effective communicators and be able to tell a compelling story. They should be methodological and document everything in the CRM. These are already breaking it down into the building blocks. And when we're breaking it down to the building blocks, now we can build our job uh, from with different people from different backgrounds. So it doesn't, the person that has those building blocks that I just mentioned doesn't necessarily have to be a salesperson in their previous job. It might be a recruiter, right? Because a recruiter also has those building blocks of being methodological and effective communicator and high EQ. It might be a marketing person. So all of a sudden, it broadens our funnel to people from different occupations, different backgrounds, uh, uh, just highly diversified. So it solves many issues of the talent pipeline and also the diversity of our talent pipeline and
That's the major
relying on
argument for skills
so many
based, right?
years of experience. Sorry, Chris, I
I said
didn't get that.
that's the major benefit of skills based, isn't it? It's broadening our available talent in the market and thus broadening our ability to hire more people from different backgrounds or with different experiences, isn't it? That's the core benefit of focusing on skills based over anything else. A really good question the other day is like, would I hire anyone without previous experience in a role, or like how much weight do you put towards that thing? And I think I'm with you here, right? It's like you're saying by getting a true definition and understanding of what are the core building blocks of a role, you are able to then broaden your horizons. That's super difficult though, isn't it? To really define. Any advice for our listeners on and how to like start breaking down like how do we understand for that salesperson they need high EQ, right? How do we start looking into that?
How do we
Any
define
advice there?
how do we define the core
So
skills?
those building blocks that we need to
The
go and
building
look
blocks.
for. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
it? Any good exercises or any I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So I can share what is the exercise that we're doing. So first of all, maybe I'll start with the technology part because I think, the generative AI and the AI world have opened so many possibilities for us. So first of all, just use public data. Like there is a lot of public data, different platforms that share. They just scrape like a trillion of job descriptions and say these are the building blocks. These are the most required skills for for these types of positions. Now, this is if you want just an external benchmark. But if you want your own imprint on this, what we're doing with the clients that we're onboarding, we're doing a process called profiling. And basically, what we do with the hiring team is
like the
we
FBI,
ask, uh,
like the
yeah,
FBI.
yeah, something like that. not as sophisticated, but I think very diagnostic. So what we're doing is we're asking them to think about, like, really run in their minds examples of very uh, top performers that are either currently working in a position or previously worked in the position, and we're asking them to break down what characterize those people in terms of their behaviors, their motivations, their values. How did they perform on the day to day? Now, we're not telling them to say what are their skills, because, like you just asked, you just said, people have different definitions to what is a skill. Sometimes they don't even comprehend what a skill is. So never mind the lingo. Just describe in a day-to-day language, how does it look like? And then we take it and we phrase it in the language of skills. So that's something that I think every TA person can do with their hiring team, to go through the same exercise, just have them speak it in a very free language, and then they go and frame it in a more of a skills language. We also do the same. We also ask them to describe low performers, because sometimes when they describe low performers, all of a sudden they're thinking about behaviors that they haven't thought when they describe the top performers. And based on that, we're able to get quite of a comprehensive list of behaviors, and sometimes it's even too comprehensive, like I said. And then what we're what we're kind of forcing them is to say, okay, what is the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? Try to prioritize. If you can't choose everything here, if you can just choose what will be your top five, and that's kind of where we're trying to create a focus. But since we know it's hard to create a focus, because all of us, like, we want the perfect
Want
candidate,
everything,
right? We
don't you?
want the perfect hire.
Yeah,
The data
As,
will do it eventually for them.
yeah.
is
You're
that
So
getting
not
the
an
that's
core
okay if
interesting
parts.
we're not
argument?
able.
Yeah.
Is that not an interesting argument for skills based, that you can be a little bit more picky, right? We're being really superficial, or like, it's almost like, I don't know what kind of bias it's called, but a bit like beauty bias, isn't it? When we're looking at someone's background or where they've been before, we're saying these things I know are what good looks like. What we're able to do with skills based is really drill down on what's good and what's bad. Often, I assume with the bad behaviors, you also highlight a good behavior. Person didn't update the database very often, and that made it really difficult for the team. So being detail orientated is super important, right? Um, uh, are we not able, in that sense, just for folks out there that aren't in TA, maybe that maybe are or maybe new to it, is that not the adoption of skills based? Is that not something that is going to allow us to be more picky? To able to look beyond those five core skills of like the five most basic things. To be an engineer, you have to use React JS to code for our team, right? So we don't really need to ask for that. It's like obvious. It's yes or no, isn't it?
Yeah,
But being able to work with the whole rest of the business and code things at speed and ship features that people want to use at speed, that's really hard. So understanding the core competencies and skills that go into doing that are super key, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creating an aligned language around what are we actually looking for and what good looks like, and then also a focused measurement, because sometimes I do see good job descriptions that are actually able to describe skills and, like, not be very comprehensive, be fairly focused. But then when you look at the job description and then you see the interview process, it doesn't translate. Like, you can't draw a direct line between the questions that they're asking and the way that they're doing the assessment, the interview, to what they actually want to measure. And uh, that specificity, or that accuracy, yes, it allows you to create a process that actually measures what you're aiming to measure. And more than that, how many times have you heard from candidates that the way that the position was described in the interview process and what it turned out to be in reality, it's completely unrelated, and that the questions that they were asked like didn't really tell them anything about the challenges that they were going to face in the on the job. Now, when you're doing skills-based hiring and when you're asking skills-based questions in the context of the position, what you're actually able to do, and that's a technique that we integrate a lot into our interviews, is that we build questions that are actually that are measuring the relevant skills and also very clearly managing expectations about the challenges that you will face in the job, on the job. So, for example, if you are a salesperson, okay, so we can provide you with a dilemma, for example, prioritizing between two different accounts. Like you can only pursue one with your time, and which type of account will you pursue? Which one has better chances of yielding a sale? Different types of challenges that are actually relevant uh, to the job, and then also the candidate. Okay, this is interesting. This is the challenges that I'll have to face. Great, I like it. It's challenging. Okay, so it also creates a better understanding of the role and more excitement towards the role challenges.
Um, are all biases bad?
Wow, that's a hard question. Um, a bias is systematically favoring or disfavoring a group in the population. If it creates a correction to something bad that is happening, like a discrimination, then I would say that it's not bad. Uh, and the reason that it's here is because like we need to make mental shortcuts. A we don't have a choice, right? So in that essence, it's a good thing that evolution created for us.
So I suppose the
Yeah.
question to you is, do you see that in your data as well, within the confidence level of they're able to accurately predict the perfect fit for the role?
Yeah. So definitely we see managers that are hiring more top performers than others versus others that are just hiring bad candidates. And and we're also reverse engineering what makes them
What's the
such good
reasons? What are the say top
interviewers.
three?
Yeah,
What are the top three reasons?
exactly. So uh, consistency, okay, asking the same questions, um, documentation, that's the second thing. And third is actually just having less biases. So being inherently less biased and kind of very open to different groups in the population, and not necessarily looking for someone that is similar to me, which is our basic tendency. These are just a few of the things that make uh, a predictive interviewer.
What's your views on LinkedIn moving to skills-based hiring? So
Boo.
that's you can see now on people's profiles they're putting their skills against their roles. So what's your views on them moving that way?
Okay, I think uh, like virtue signaling is like, I think it's good in a sense that okay, it signifies the importance of skills. In that sense, I think it has a meaning. My concern is how do you actually translate that into a valid measurement, a valid assessment of the skills. So that's kind of the good and the suspicious in it for me.
Okay, good. And then I had a qu- had a question. I wanted to speak to you both about actually. This is a theory I have. Sharon and I say we're into Chris the role. We'll come to a meeting. Beauty buyers may come into it straight away. We're like, Chris turns up, and he starts talking and he's very confident. I'll be like, he's an 8. He's an 8 out of 10. If, however, he starts stumbling or not sure, that your score kind of goes down. I see this wave going. So you got this like 8, and then it goes down. If he does really well, it goes up, and after a while, if you allow your bias as well, percentages go in there. But you start having a level, and you can probably stay at that level, at a high level. You think this person's good. No matter what I ask them, they're good. It confirms everything. There'll be confirmation that that person's good. The same also I would go with if someone who's not performed well. they've had one question, all of a sudden they've not answered it well, and they drop from like potentially a 7 or 8 and then down to a 3. Has anyone done any work on analysis of like a little scoring system from that?
De-
I'll be interested. Or you
Definitely,
any?
you can
Yeah,
also see it in your data. So two things that you've mentioned, I'll frame them like in the biases language. So confirmation bias, I
yeah,
have an initial hypothesis, maybe because I viewed the previous interviewer's score or notes, which we recommend not to do. And first impression, good, bad, it can kind of take us all throughout. Two things I will say. One, be a researcher, not a judge. That's what we say to all of our interviewers, all of our users. Act like act like a researcher. So if you have an hypothesis, it's okay. Write it with a question mark, not with an exclamation point. Try to look for examples that actually disprove your opinion, not just kind of give you a pat on the back. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so that's being a researcher. Other than that, when you do skills based hiring and you work with scoring rubrics that provide you uh, what does a good answer actually look like, it can take you away from that because each question is being assessed separately. And that's, again, something that we're putting into our infrastructure to ensure that these things happen less and less and less the more that you interview.
love that. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chris. You got any thoughts on that as well?
Sure.
That theory.
No, it's a tough one, isn't it? I'm with you and want to explore more. It's a really difficult area that I feel like we're only just beginning to scratch the surface of. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but like I'm being told about new biases all the time, learning about things that I do in interview that cause bias that maybe not. That might be my actions. That might not be directly linked to a bias, right? Like I ADHD. Sometimes I can be excited, which means I can speak too much, as Darren well knows.
That's what we're talking about.
That can make interviewing quite hard for me sometimes, particularly if I'm in a really good one and it's vibey. For me, it can be quite difficult because we can, I want to learn. I'm listening. I want to do it. That my action causes a bias. Like there's so many things that can cause that weighting. I think you were talking about, Darren,
Yeah,
where you're exposed, but you're not exposed. Then you are exposed. But you expose something else, and one thing becomes another thing really quickly.
yeah.
You might have gone, hang on, I'm not trying to get sucked in by Chris because he is engaging. But
It's
now I don't know. I really
You're
like his
right.
glasses.
It's really easy to just go with the flow.
Yeah,
We call it like being a jellyfish, right? So whatever, it's interesting. So I'll dive into it. But is it relevant? Like, is it something really relevant? Because follow-up questions are important, but they're important if they're relevant to the skills that you're trying to measure, not just because you're curious and you're having a great conversation. And that's a part of being a good interviewer because you have such a limited time, and like your responsibility as an interviewer is to manage that time to collect as much relevant, I would say, relevant information about the candidate in order to make a decision. And the documentation thing, we know it's an issue. That's why, like, I think that also like other interview intelligence platform have, but our twist is so we have an interview bot that goes into the call, transcribes the entire call, summarizes it at the end. Our summary is a skills based summary. So again, for the same skills that you've assessed, you're also getting them in the AI generated summary, the strengths and points for growth based on skills.
Nice. Thank you. I think we hit the timer 5 minutes ago. This was what
Oh,
happened.
it's time. The time is up, and it's back to 30
Yeah,
again. So we're
yeah.
stuck.
So
Does
we have
bring
two
us
more.
to our
Yeah, we have two questions, Sharon. The first question is that we always ask all our guests: any other TA tools or tech tools that you've seen in the market that interest you?
yeah, definitely. There are so many. It's hard to pick. It's hard to pick one. Um, I'm trying to think about like what would be the best one. I think you've actually they've actually participated in your podcast. It's an ATS with diversity first.
Applied.
He applied.
Applied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems also what they're trying to do, like very aligned also with what we're doing, is to level the playing field all throughout from the start, like really from the application stage, which is something that I truly appreciate. So that's if I only need to mention one.
Yeah.
They're great. Big fans as well. Nice, very nice people, and trying to fix a problem deeply. I think I'm super impressed by them.
Yeah.
Our final question is what's next for Informed Decisions. So we're at where we're at now. What's coming next in the roadmap for you guys?
Yeah. Wow, so many things. So maybe I would just mention two. One is to move like from moving from the ability to recognize bias in interviews that already happened to the ability to predict the bias before it happens. So basically, we're accumulating data. So eventually, we'll get to a point where we know that we see the pattern and we're able to predict it before it happens. So that's kind of already uh, a super preventative approach. What we're doing now is also a preventative approach, like towards your next interviews, but that can even actually happen in the interview. So that's one thing. The second thing is eventually our vision is to make the entire interview process skills based, data driven, and being able to reverse engineer it. So basically, adding more and more components to our platform to encompass the entire process. So eventually, when you go inside and you want to make a decision, you will able to aggregate the data from all of your stages, the pre-screening stages, assessments, whatever you're doing, in order to make an informed decision. So that's kind of two areas that we're moving towards.
Exciting.
That is exciting. Yeah.
Exciting.
Thank you.
And our guess our final question, the
Bonus
hidden
question.
question that we never talk about, the bonus question is: if someone wants to get in touch with you guys, what's the best way to reach out?
Okay, so first of all, just feel free to reach out to me either via LinkedIn or my email, shiran@informeddecisions.io, or just go to our website, book a demo. It's right there as you open it, informeddecisions.io. So these are, and follow our company page because every day we post there just funny interview stories and a lot of what research has to offer in terms of what are the best, the predictive tools, the non-predictive tools, data from our internal research about biases. So tons of very useful information if you want to make your hiring process more equitable, more data-driven, and more efficient.
Awesome.
Great.
Sadly, that brings us to the end of this week's show. It's been wonderful to have you on and to learn more. I'll certainly be watching back. I don't know if you guys can hear the background, but the hailstorms have started coming down for me.
No.
Big
can't hear
ones. Can't you? Okay. But
Thank you for
so much for
having
coming
me.
on. Pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that's it, I guess, for everybody for this week's show. We'll hope to have you back on again soon, Shiran, and we've loved having you on. Loved learning about informed decisions. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to reach out to Informed Decisions to learn more about their platform.
Thank you.
That's us signing off, guys.